My name is Annette Desmarais. I'm a Canada Research Chair in Human Rights, Social Justice and Food Sovereignty at the University of Manitoba. I'm a longtime NFU member, and also I'm the former IPC coordinator. The history of the International Program Committee, the IPC, is so rich and full of interesting experiences and insights resulting from all different kinds of exchanges that NFU members have had with counterparts in other countries. Now, I'm convinced that this international experience has certainly helped shape who the NFU is today and how it works. What I want to do today is simply give you some of the glimpses into why we created the IPC, and I want to also go through its original goals and strategies. And my aim here is actually just to set up some context for the presentations that will follow. So can I have the next slide, please? Okay, the NFU has a long history of international engagement. In fact, not long after the NFU was created, as you can see from this slide, throughout the 70s and 80s, the NFU was certainly active at the international level. And actually the next two slides, this slide and the next one, you'll see just what I mean when I say that we've been busy at the international level. I mean, for example, I'll just give you a couple of examples of where we were throughout those years. Like in 1980, there were 4 NFU'ers that participated in the founding convention of the St. Vincent National Farmers Union in the Caribbean. In 1984, NFU members participate in the Farmers Brigade to Nicaragua. The NFU also participates with WINFA, the Windward Island Farmers Association in the Caribbean, to form a linkage, which essentially consisted of exchanges that lasted anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to each other's countries. If you go to the next slide, please. So in 1989, for example, the NFU initiates a campaign on NAFTA, and it meets with farmers organizations in North Dakota to talk about trade. The NFU women's delegation meets in Nicaragua with the UNAG women to talk about developing an exchange. In 1993, the NFU Women's Vice goes to the GATT protests in Geneva. The NFU youth president goes to Mexico on a labor exchange. The NFU or a NFU representative participates in the founding conference of the Via Campesina in Belgium. So as you can see, we've been busy, and I gave you all of these years and examples just so that you can get a sense of how much involvement we've had at the international level. And in fact, by 1992, 1993, 1994, it just seemed to get busier and busier. And a lot of that, of course, was because the globalization of a neoliberal model of agriculture was moving forward full speed ahead, along with the imposition of bilateral and also global trade agreements. So all of this activity, this amazing amount of work being done internationally, essentially inspired the NFU to form the IPC in 1995. Can I have the next slide, please? So through the IPC, the NFU sought to better coordinate its international work and to kind of give it some structure, to consolidate it across the country. It was a small committee, but it had big, ambitious plans. And the main goals of the IPC were to broaden the NFU's understanding and analysis of this global food system that was being created, share information and experiences with farmers elsewhere about what was happening in agriculture, what was changing in the agricultural landscape, and also learn how farmers were organizing themselves. It was also formed to create a lot to have more impact in Canada as an organization and to affect social change. And key also was that it was formed to understand the impact of Canadian agricultural policy on Canadian farm families, but also what kinds of impact were our policies having on farmers elsewhere. Next slide, please. So essentially, the IPC's mandate was to develop a national plan for the NFU's international work. And it was also meant to coordinate the work between or among the NFU regions. We didn't want the international work to be concentrated in one or two regions. We wanted all regions to be involved. We had to prepare a lot of funding proposals to do some of the international work and to bring international delegations to Canada. And fourthly, it was aimed to implement whatever decisions the NFU executive and board made about the NFU's international involvement. And also key was the aim to promote the connections between the local and the global concerns within the NFU. The next slide, please. Now, to carry out this, this huge mandate, the IPC adopted a couple of, well, about 4 or 5 key strategies. First of all, it would work with La Via Campesina and other organizations to organize international exchanges, delegations, to also make sure that there were communication links set up with farm organizations elsewhere. We wanted to also ensure that the international work was grounded in local realities and ensure that we had a gender analysis in whatever work we were doing. We wanted to increase women's participation and representation in Canada and also internationally in whatever work we were doing. We wanted to strengthen relations with like-minded development agencies because we needed their financial support, but we also needed their political support. And lastly, we aimed to strengthen the Via Campesina in the Americas. Next slide, please. So the NFU committee, IPC, was closely linked, worked always closely with the national board and also the executive. It regularly reported to the board and it sought approval, for some key actions and decisions, directions that we needed to be able to continue doing our international work. Essentially, the IPC advises the NFU on international work. That is, the IPC is accountable to the national board and executive. And it was structured in a way that, that we could successfully engage NFU'ers across the country in international work. So that meant that the structure was that we had one representative from each of the NFU regions, and those representatives were elected at regional conventions. The IPC appoints its own chair and co-chair, and importantly, the IPC has managed to always have a part-time paid position, which is the IPC coordinator. So my final slide. The IPC has accomplished so much. It's organized numerous solidarity exchanges to Canada. It has also participated in international exchanges internationally. It's coordinated the National Farmers Union's international participation. It's assisted NFU leaders to play an active role in the Via Campesina, and I'm speaking specifically right now about the regional leadership. We've had two different NFU women who have been regional coordinators of the Via Campesina at the regional level. And we have also had NFU youth play active roles in the Via Campesina international leadership. We've democratized the NFU international work. That is, across the country, NFU'ers are involved in this work. We've succeeded to bring the local to the global, which is super important, and also vice versa. We've succeeded in bringing the global to the local. That is, the NFU's work is informed by a deep and extensive understanding and knowledge of what is happening globally. Now I'll pass it on to the next presenter.